Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are diving deep into one of the most iconic, historic, and emotionally powerful coins ever produced by the United States Mint, the Lincoln Wheat Penny, a coin that did far more than circulate through pockets and purses because it carried with it the story of a nation, the memory of a president, and the economic heartbeat of America for more than half a century. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, making it the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure rather than a symbolic representation like Liberty, a revolutionary decision at the time that forever changed American coinage, with the obverse designed by sculptor Victor David Brenner, who presented Lincoln in a dignified yet approachable profile that instantly resonated with the public, while the reverse featured two simple wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, symbolizing prosperity, agriculture, and national growth during a period when America was still deeply rooted in farming and self-sufficiency. And when this coin entered circulation, it arrived at a moment of immense transformation, as the country was stepping into the modern industrial age while still clinging tightly to its rural foundations, making the wheat penny a perfect bridge between tradition and progress. Struck initially in a composition of 95% copper with 5% tin and zinc, giving it that warm reddish tone that collectors still cherish today, and produced at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with mint marks appearing just below the date on the obverse except for Philadelphia, which traditionally bore none, and from its earliest days the coin was immediately popular, so much so that the mint struggled to meet public demand, while early controversy even surrounded Brenner's initials VDB, which were originally placed prominently on the reverse and quickly removed later in 1909 due to public criticism, creating one of the most famous and valuable varieties in American numismatics. Yet beyond controversies and minting details, the Lincoln Wheat Penny became a silent witness to history itself, passing through hands during World War I, surviving the Great Depression, financing candy bars during World War II, and resting in jars, drawers, and childhood collections across generations. And as years passed, the coin evolved subtly through changes in metal composition, minting technology, and production volumes, especially during wartime shortages when copper became a strategic resource. Yet despite all these changes, the fundamental design endured, becoming familiar and comforting to millions of Americans, a small copper disc that symbolized honesty, resilience, and continuity. And even after its production ended in 1958, when the Lincoln Memorial reverse replaced the wheat design, the wheat penny never truly disappeared. Because collectors, historians, and everyday people continued to save them, search through rolls, and pass down stories attached to specific dates and mint marks, making this coin not just an object of metal but a carrier of memory, emotion, and historical identity. And as we explore this coin further, we will uncover how production changes, mint decisions, economic pressures, and historical events shaped every single year of its existence, revealing why the Lincoln Wheat Penny remains one of the most beloved and collected coins in the world today. The introduction of the Lincoln Wheat Penny marked not only a turning point in American coinage but also a reflection of the nation's evolving identity at the dawn of the 20th century, as the United States moved away from abstract classical imagery and toward honoring real historical figures whose legacies shaped the country. And the choice of Abraham Lincoln was both symbolic and deeply emotional for the American public, because his image represented unity, sacrifice, and perseverance during the Civil War and beyond, making the penny more than just a circulating coin but a pocket-sized monument carried by millions every day. And when Victor David Brenner's design was finally approved after multiple revisions, it brought with it a realism never before seen on a U.S. circulating coin, capturing Lincoln's thoughtful expression, strong jawline, and dignified presence in a way that felt human rather than idealized, while the reverse design featuring two wheat ears framing the denomination symbolized America's agricultural backbone and prosperity, reinforcing the idea that the strength of the nation was rooted in both its people and its land. And as production began in 1909, the Lincoln Wheat Penny entered circulation during a time of industrial expansion, immigration, and social change, quickly becoming familiar to Americans from every walk of life, from factory workers and farmers to shopkeepers and schoolchildren. And despite being a small denomination, the penny played a vital role in daily commerce, making it one of the most widely handled and recognized coins in U.S. history. And the public reaction to the new design was immediate and intense, with many praising its beauty and significance, while others debated whether placing a real person on a coin broke long-standing traditions rooted in classical symbolism. Yet over time, the Lincoln portrait became so accepted that it reshaped expectations for future U.S. coin designs, paving the way for later coins honoring Jefferson, Roosevelt, Washington, and other historical figures. And from a technical standpoint, the early Lincoln Wheat Pennies were struck in a bronze alloy composed primarily of copper, giving them a warm reddish tone when freshly minted that gradually darkened over time due to circulation and environmental exposure, and these early cents were produced at multiple mints including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each contributing to subtle variations that would later become significant to collectors, while the coin's size, weight, and metallic composition reflected both practicality and tradition, ensuring compatibility with existing vending machines and cash registers. Yet the simplicity of the design allowed for mass production on a scale that met the growing demands of a rapidly expanding economy, and as the years progressed, the Lincoln Wheat Penny quietly witnessed some of the most defining moments in American history, circulating through the hands of citizens during World War I, the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and World War II, each era leaving its invisible mark on the coins through wear patterns, discoloration, and occasional damage, turning ordinary cents into silent historical artifacts. And during times of economic hardship, such as the Great Depression, pennies held particular importance as even the smallest denomination could make a difference in daily survival, making the Lincoln Wheat Penny a symbol of thrift, endurance, and resilience. And for many Americans, these coins became associated with childhood memories, savings jars, and the simple habit of checking pocket change for something unusual, unknowingly laying the foundation for future generations of coin collectors, while the continued use of Brenner's obverse design across decades demonstrated its timeless appeal and adaptability, surviving changes in minting technology, economic conditions, and public taste, and even as minor design tweaks and adjustments were made to improve striking quality or address production issues, the core identity of the Lincoln Wheat Penny remained intact, preserving its original spirit and purpose, and by the mid-20th century, as newer designs and compositions were being considered, the wheat penny had already secured its place as one of the most beloved and recognizable coins ever issued by the United States, not because of its face value, but because of the stories it carried, the hands it passed through, and the historical journey it represented, making it a cornerstone of American numismatics and a lasting tribute to both Abraham Lincoln and the everyday lives of the people who used the coin for more than half a century. The Lincoln Wheat Penny continued its journey through some of the most transformative decades in American history, evolving quietly in the pockets of citizens while witnessing wars, economic collapse, recovery, and global power shifts, and as the years passed after its 1909 debut, the coin became deeply woven into everyday American life, with millions of pieces flowing through commerce as wages, savings, and small purchases, making it one of the most handled and recognizable coins ever struck by the United States Mint. And during the 1910s and 1920s, the wheat penny served as a constant companion to working-class Americans, farmers, factory workers, shopkeepers, and children alike, reflecting the reality of a nation transitioning from rural roots into an industrial powerhouse, while its design remained largely unchanged, preserving Victor David Brenner's dignified portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, which was admired for its realism and strength, while the reverse wheat ears symbolized abundance, agriculture, and national prosperity, ideals that resonated strongly during an era when farming still played a central role in the American economy. And as World War I unfolded, the Lincoln Wheat Penny circulated during a time when copper itself became a strategic material, leading to careful management of metal supplies, yet the coin's bronze composition remained intact, maintaining its familiar reddish-brown tone, and following the war, the economic boom of the Roaring Twenties saw unprecedented production numbers, with mints in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco striking hundreds of millions of wheat pennies annually to meet growing demand, making these years especially common among collectors today, though conditions still plays a critical role in value. And then came the Great Depression, a defining chapter in the wheat penny story, as banks failed, unemployment soared, and millions of Americans relied on every cent they could earn or save, with the wheat penny often representing real purchasing power in an era when a few cents could buy bread, milk, or a newspaper. And during these hard times, many people saved pennies in jars, coffee cans, or drawers, unknowingly preserving coins that would later become collectibles. And as the Depression deepened, mintages fluctuated, sometimes dropping significantly, particularly at branch mints, which would later contribute to scarcity and collector interest, and the wheat penny became a silent witness to hardship, resilience, and survival, passed from hand to hand as families struggled to make ends meet. And as the United States entered World War II, the wheat penny again found itself at the center of national resource management, with copper becoming critically important for ammunition and military equipment, prompting the U.S. Mint to make one of the most dramatic changes in the penny's history, introducing the famous steel cent in 1943. But before and after that brief experiment, wheat pennies continued to be struck in bronze, and even during wartime, the coin remained a symbol of continuity and stability, reminding Americans of shared values and national identity. And once the war ended, the late 1940s and early 1950s marked a period of renewed prosperity, suburban growth, and rising consumer culture, during which wheat pennies were produced in massive quantities once again, filling cash registers, piggy banks, and pockets across the country. And yet, despite their abundance, subtle differences in mint marks, die varieties, and strike quality emerged over the decades, creating layers of complexity beneath what appeared to be a simple everyday coin, and collectors today study these variations carefully, appreciating how changes in minting technology, workforce experience, and economic conditions influenced the final appearance of each piece, and throughout its lifespan. The wheat penny maintained a consistent visual identity that made it instantly recognizable, with Lincoln's calm yet resolute expression serving as a reminder of unity, sacrifice, and leadership, while the wheat ears on the reverse continued to represent nourishment, growth, and the backbone of the nation, and by the time the wheat penny approached the end of its run in the late 1950s, it had already secured its place as one of the most beloved and historically significant coins in American numismatics, not just for its design or composition, but for the countless stories embedded within each worn surface, each scratch and patina marking a moment in someone's life, a transaction, a memory, or a struggle, making the Lincoln Wheat Penny far more than just a coin, but a small bronze chronicle of America's journey through the first half of the 20th century. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series is especially beloved by collectors because within what appears to be a simple copper coin lies one of the most complex landscapes of key dates, mint rarities, dramatic production changes, and legendary mint errors ever seen in United States numismatics, beginning with the earliest years when demand for the new Lincoln cent was enormous and mintages varied widely between Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Denver, creating instant scarcity in certain issues like the 1909 SVDB, a coin that today stands as one of the most famous key dates in all of American coin collecting due to its low mintage of just 484,000 pieces combined with the controversy surrounding Victor David Brenner's initials, which were removed shortly after production began, making high-grade examples worth thousands of dollars and pristine red mint state survivors reaching auction prices well into five figures, followed closely by the 1909 S without the VDB, which remained scarce due to its limited production and historical significance, then moving into the 1910s where collectors encounter the 1914 D, a deceptively common-looking cent that is in fact one of the most elusive circulation strikes of the entire series with a mintage of only 1.19 million. Heavily circulated examples commanding hundreds of dollars while sharply struck mint state specimens can exceed $20,000 at auction, alongside the 1911 S and 1912 S which present condition rarity challenges due to weak strikes and poor planchet quality at the San Francisco Mint, as the series enters the World War I era with copper demand rising and production challenges increasing, setting the stage for dramatic mint errors and die varieties that would later become legendary, including double dies that resulted from misaligned hubbing processes, none more famous than the 1917 double die obverse, which shows clear doubling on the date and lettering and remains a highly sought-after variety commanding strong premiums. Even in lower grades, while the 1920s introduce what many consider the most difficult regular issue coin of the entire wheat penny series, the 1922 No D cent, a coin born from worn dies and grease-filled mint marks at the Denver Mint that resulted in cents being struck without a visible D mint mark, creating an accidental rarity that is fiercely collected today, especially in strong reverse condition where the wheat ears remain sharp, with top-tier examples selling for tens of thousands of dollars, and as the Great Depression takes hold the 1930s bring both massive mintages and hidden treasures, including the famous 1931 S with a mintage of just 866,000, widely saved by collectors at the time but still valuable in high grades, and the emergence of repunched mint marks and minor double dies that reward careful examination. Before the series reaches its most historically significant transformation during World War II when copper shortages forced the United States Mint to experiment with alternative materials, resulting in the famous 1943 steel cent struck in zinc-coated steel, a coin instantly recognizable for its silver-gray appearance and magnetic properties. Yet even within this wartime issue lies one of the greatest errors in U.S. coinage history, the 1943 copper cent, accidentally struck on leftover bronze planchets from 1942. With only a handful known across all three mints and individual examples selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars and in some cases exceeding $1 million at major auctions, mirrored by the equally rare but less publicized 1944 steel cent errors, struck when steel planchets remained in the presses after the mint returned to copper alloy production, again producing coins of extreme rarity and immense value. And as the wheat penny era continues into the post-war years, collectors encounter numerous repunched mint marks, die cracks, cuds, off-center strikes, and broad strikes that add depth to the series, culminating in one final legendary variety, the 1955 double die obverse, arguably the most famous double die in American history, displaying dramatic doubling visible to the naked eye on the date and inscriptions, widely discovered in circulation and quickly becoming a collector sensation, with even circulated examples selling for thousands of dollars and high-grade red specimens achieving auction prices well above $100,000, reinforcing the Lincoln Wheat Pennies' reputation as a series where everyday pocket change once held life-changing value, and where careful study, patience, and historical appreciation can still uncover remarkable stories preserved in copper, zinc, and steel, making this coinage not just a foundation of American numismatics but a living archive of economic pressure, wartime adaptation, and human error frozen in metal. The Lincoln Wheat Penny enters its most fascinating and emotionally charged chapter when collectors move beyond basic dates and begin uncovering the extraordinary world of scarcity, survival, and unexpected fortune hidden within everyday change. Because while millions of wheat pennies were minted across nearly 5 decades, only a tiny fraction remain today in conditions or varieties that elevate them from pocket change to legendary collectibles. And this is where the story becomes truly thrilling, starting with the reality that most wheat pennies circulated heavily during the Great Depression, World War I, and World War II, eras when coins were not saved as keepsakes but spent repeatedly on bread, newspapers, train fares, and factory lunches, meaning that high-grade examples are genuinely rare not because of low mintages but because of relentless use, environmental exposure, and later mass melting, especially during copper shortages. And this context explains why a common date wheat penny in pristine mint state can sometimes be more desirable than a lower-grade example of a scarcer date, as condition becomes a defining factor in value, with collectors obsessively grading strike sharpness, original mint luster, surface preservation, and even subtle color tones ranging from deep brown to blazing red, each shade telling its own survival story. And within this landscape of condition rarity emerge the coins that transformed Lincoln Wheat Pennies into global icons. Beginning with the legendary 1909 SVDB, a coin that embodies controversy, artistry, and scarcity all at once, minted in limited numbers in San Francisco before public backlash forced the removal of Victor David Brenner's initials, making surviving examples symbols of a brief but historic moment in American coinage, followed by the equally elusive 1909S without VDB, the 1914D with its deceptively ordinary appearance masking extreme scarcity, and the 1931S, a product of the Great Depression, when demand for coins collapsed and mintages plummeted. Yet these key dates are only the surface of a much deeper ocean of rarity, because era coins elevate the Lincoln Wheat Penny into an entirely different universe, where accidental misalignments, die failures, and production mistakes created unique specimens that were never meant to exist, and among these, double die varieties stand as crown jewels, especially the famous 1955 double die obverse, where bold doubling in the date and inscriptions is so dramatic it can be seen without magnification, a visual anomaly that turned accidental errors into deliberate treasures, followed by other double dies such as the 1922 double die, the 1941 double die, and numerous lesser-known varieties that reward knowledgeable collectors willing to study fine details, while off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and rotated dies add layers of fascination, each coin representing a moment when machinery faltered and history veered slightly off course, producing something irreplaceable. And then comes the wartime era, where material composition itself becomes a story of survival and sacrifice, as copper was diverted for ammunition and military equipment, leading to the creation of the 1943 steel cent, a coin that shocked the public with its silver-gray appearance and introduced challenges such as rusting and confusion with dimes. Yet within this steel year lie some of the rarest mistakes ever discovered, including the mythical 1943 bronze cents, struck accidentally on leftover copper planchets, now worth hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, mirrored by the equally rare 1944 steel cents created when steel blanks slipped into post-war production, turning simple cents into six-figure legends. And these transitional errors are not just valuable but symbolic, representing moments when history, industry, and chance collided, while beyond famous errors, subtle mint mark variations, repunched mint marks, overdates, and die cracks quietly increased desirability among specialists, proving that the Wheat Penny series rewards patience, education, and curiosity. And as collectors assemble sets by date and mint, many discover that completing a full wheat penny collection becomes a lifetime pursuit rather than a checklist, as affordability at lower grades contrasts sharply with soaring prices for high-grade examples, reinforcing the idea that rarity is not defined solely by mintage numbers but by survival against time, handling, and economic upheaval. And this is why the Lincoln Wheat Penny remains one of the most studied and emotionally resonant coin series in American numismatics, because it bridges everyday life and extraordinary discovery, reminding collectors that history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a small copper disc worn smooth by generations. waiting patiently for someone to recognize its story and its value. Continuing the final stretch of the Lincoln Wheat Penny story, this concluding passage brings together the emotional weight, historical significance, collector fascination, and enduring legacy that has made this small copper coin one of the most beloved and hunted pieces in American numismatics, because by the time the wheat cent quietly disappeared from circulation in 1958, it had already achieved something rare in monetary history, transforming from an everyday object into a cultural symbol. Recognized across generations, continents, and economic classes, a coin that passed through the hands of factory workers during World War I, farmers struggling through the Dust Bowl, soldiers riding home during World War II, and children in the post-war boom who unknowingly spent what would later become treasures, and as collectors look back today, the wheat penny represents not just metal and mint marks but stories frozen in copper, where each year, mint, and die variety tells a chapter of America's rise through industrialization, conflict, and recovery, and this is why certain dates like the 1909 SVDB feel almost mythical, commanding enormous premiums because they combine low mintage, controversy, and the birth of the Lincoln series, while others such as the 1914 D or 1922 No D quietly gained legendary status due to economic conditions that limited production and quality, turning accidental scarcity into long-term value, and beyond key dates, the era coins elevate the wheat penny into a realm of detective work and excitement, where double dies like the famous 1955 create dramatic visual proof of minting mistakes, off-metal strikes reveal experimental moments inside U.S. mint facilities, and repunched mint marks remind us that every coin was once the product of human hands and imperfect machinery, and when collectors examine these coins today under magnification, they are not just grading condition but time itself, evaluating how decades of circulation, storage, and survival have shaped the surface, color, and luster, with original red examples glowing like preserved history while brown survivors speak of honest use, and the market continues to reflect this emotional connection as auction records climb for high-grade pieces, especially those certified by major grading services, proving that demand for the wheat penny is not fading but evolving as new collectors enter the hobby through roll hunting, inheritance, or online discovery, often sparked by the simple realization that a common-looking penny could be worth far more than 1 cent, and this accessibility is perhaps the greatest legacy of the wheat cent, because unlike gold coins or ancient artifacts locked behind glass, wheat pennies invite participation, encouraging curiosity, patience, and education, whether someone is searching through old jars, buying albums, or studying minting history, and globally, the Lincoln Wheat Penny has become an ambassador of American numismatics. Collected by enthusiasts far beyond the United States who see it as a compact piece of American identity, combining Abraham Lincoln's legacy with agricultural symbolism that resonates universally, and even after more than a century since its debut, the design remains iconic, influencing modern commemoratives and reminding us that good design paired with historical meaning can transcend its original purpose, and as time moves forward and fewer wheat pennies remain in circulation, their role shifts fully from money to memory, from pocket change to preservation, ensuring that future generations will continue to study, collect, and admire them not just for their potential value but for the stories they carry, the mistakes they reveal, and the history they quietly witnessed, making the Lincoln Wheat Penny not merely a coin but a chronicle in copper that still speaks to anyone willing to listen. Thanks for watching.